What you doing?
I'm just admiring the Marine in the Ask Mike cave because the Marines know how to play instruments.
He's a sharp-dressed man, is he not?
He is. That's a good
Awesome. And
uniform.
I think the reason he's in your cave is because, and I'm going to take this opportunity to let everybody else know, they're on the way. So I
They
was talking
are.
to my friend John Carroll at Odessa College. John's doing some really cool stuff at Odessa College. Got a great community band going. But he reminded me that the Marine Band will be there October the 24th. Actually, they're not going to be at Odessa College. They're going to be at First Baptist Church, but as a function of Odessa College, they're bringing them in. They've got a cool new auditorium, a great sounding place for the Marine Band to be there. So they'll be there in Odessa on the 24th. That's Friday night. And I'm correct, they're going to be in Abilene the next day?
Yes, on the 25th, on the Saturday at Hardin-Simmons University, Barron's
Cool, cool.
Auditorium.
And listen, I'm going to tell you something. I've told my story before that it was a service band that I listened to that made me say, I want to do that. I want to play a trumpet. And so I encourage you, directors, to encourage your kids. And, you know, if there's parents that happen to take your kids, I think it's important. We should say this: you do need a ticket.
Yes. And the tickets are
Right.
free.
This is simply to make sure we have enough room for everyone.
Hey, Derek, I just want to add one more thing
Okay.
about the tickets. You do have your seats guaranteed if you get a ticket. There's a QR code, doesn't cost a penny. You can just print it off, leave it on your
Oh,
phone,
cool.
and show it to them. But if you decide that afternoon, you're just like, hey, man, I kind of want to go see that, then you can just show up. And then if there's extra seats where people don't show up, or maybe they didn't do all the tickets, then they will
That's
let
cool.
you in. They will let you in. So all the seats are full. It's a fire marshal thing.
Keeps us, and it
It
keeps us
really
all
is.
legal.
Yeah, it keeps it all legal. You don't want to cram so many people in there and then something
But I do want
happens.
to encourage everybody. I know it's Friday night. I know it's Saturday, but this is worth every bit of your time and effort if you can go see this wonderful performing group. So again, that's the Marine. Is it the President's Own, or is it one of the?
The President's Own, the Marine.
That's
It's the band, the DC,
band.
the DC band that stays at the
Cool,
Marine
cool, cool.
barracks up there, the rehearsal
Yeah,
area. Yeah.
it's well worth it. Odessa College is presenting it at First Baptist in Odessa, 24th, and then there'll be the next day in. And I know that there's going to be QR codes floating around too. Rick might even find one and flash it up during this ramble. But then at Hardin-Simmons, what's the name of the hall?
Barron Hall.
Fantastic. And I know that our good friend John Carroll and Jay Lester would both appreciate you taking time to come out and hang out with them. So
Yeah, it's going to be
cool.
awesome.
Well, let's get into an Ask Mike.
This is the Ask Mike podcast. Strike up the band and let's get into it with your hosts, Mike Lunny and Derek Killam.
The Talent Code is a book from 2009. He argues that greatness is not an innate gift. This is going to go all over my friend Derek. It is not an innate gift. We are not born with talent. I can see him triggered already, but the quality can be cultivated by anyone. So there is a line in between those two, but he kind of approaches it from that far aspect. And I know Derek's getting mad already.
We've had this conversation.
Yeah, we've talked at each other. Yeah.
Some people are born that way.
Yeah.
And you disagree, right?
Yeah.
Or, excuse me. The author disagrees.
Yeah, they're just born playing Chopin on a piano. Yeah, you're right.
I didn't say that.
I'm just taking the far spectrum.
Right, but I just don't know how you can argue that some people have a bent or a lean towards doing some things better than they do others.
Yeah. The farthest I'll go is I agree with you that some people learn quicker. I don't think they were born with more talent. I think they're just smarter. They could have, if they'd have taken all that energy to play trombone in the London Symphony Orchestra, they probably could have been a computer coder.
But see, this sounds like the Far East, where you were born and they tell you that this is what you're going to do for a living. You might as well get good at it.
No. No, I'm saying it's what they chose to be their passion.
So
they chose
free will is involved.
Yeah, free will's involved. We're not Calvinistic here. This isn't, we'll get into politics here and just piss everybody off.
Welcome to Ask Mike.
Ask Mike. Okay. Now we're going to hear from my Catholic friends. Now, and now we're going to hear from my Calvinist. And now we're going to hear from my back pew Baptist friends, which I'm a member of.
And
Okay.
all I'm saying is I'm better at some things than I am at others. Tell me why.
Because you do them more and you're smarter in those activities. And I see your point.
I enjoy them more.
To a certain extent, we're both right.
Sure.
There's a line in between,
So for those who've just joined us, what are we talking about?
Yeah, what are we talking about? What the what the heck are we talking about?
He takes a swig.
Yeah, that's right. The morning coffee.
Coffee. Seriously, where are we going? What is this?
Well, it's the idea that
you speak of.
And you're right, Derek. I'm just giving you a hard time, and I think you're giving me a hard time, but I think you're really just trying to get after me. But it's the idea of cultivating the talent within your own band and in your own self. How do we make what our passion? How do we make it better? Because just because we're quote talented at it doesn't mean we're going to naturally get better at it.
So here's my concession to you.
Okay.
I was in school. I was a trumpet major and a vocal major. I enjoy singing.
Yeah.
And I used to say, anybody can sing. And people would say, oh, no. You don't understand. I can't sing. Yes, you can. Anybody can sing. I just didn't understand the concept of people that would say, I can't sing. And I do understand that maybe you don't sing as well as somebody else if you're going to go ahead and, put a rubric on it or listen, some people just have beautiful voices.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean other people can't sing. So I will concede the point that we all get better by working at it. Because if you learn how to breathe correctly, if you learn how to, manipulate your soft palate, if you learn how to resonate your nasal cavity, all these things that help you become a better singer is a learned thing as opposed to maybe somebody stumbles into it naturally.
Okay. Yeah. And I would agree with that. I mean, there's certain things that are gifts, but this is going to go in kind of a different direction than I think what you're thinking.
Okay.
Because Daniel Coyle is more of a neuroscientist. And you got to go with me on this.
Sorry, did you say nerd? Is it?
Yeah. Well, he's smarter than all.
He wrote a book.
He's smarter than all the band directors put together.
Okay.
But he talks about how to learn things, but he does do it in terms of a musician. So I think it's a really cool combination. But he talks about that in our brain, there's these neural insulation. There's insulation in our neural fibers that connect within our brain. They're known as myelin. Myelin is that neural sheath that allows neurons to fire on each other. Okay. So in order to cultivate talent, he goes and this works because I've used it. And I've seen massive improvements in the things I do by following his system, which this sounds really out there, but it really does work. So band directors, hang with me. You don't have to go through all that. You just have to know the science behind it. You don't have to teach the science. Okay. But the idea is that if you do things in a certain order, it allows your brain to rewire to make that talent stronger for you as an individual because you have more neurons firing at the right time.
Okay.
That sounds really out there, doesn't it? Let's burn some incense and let's do some prayers.
No. But it lines up with other things that, even your atomic habits. If you do things in the right order, if you create a habit in the right order, then it becomes an actual habit that you utilize. From this, I'll be quiet. I won't jump ahead here. You go ahead.
Okay. But it's the idea that if we do things in the right order, we access different parts of our mind because there's great YouTube videos out there of people where they'll put them in for like a brain scan and then they'll have them play like an electric keyboard in front of them as they're laying there and you'll see different parts of their brain fire up.
Right.
See, those parts of the brain don't fire up unless we instruct them to fire up.
Okay.
And what happens is that in our discussion, is it talent? Is it a learned ability? It's a little of both, because some people access that part of their brain easier and quicker. Some people have to work harder to make those connections. But it really does come down to a very physical thing. It's not this spiritual gift of talent that makes us better at something. It's us taking that gift that we were given and making it better. And people say, "Oh, they're talented." I like the old meme of, "Oh, you play so beautifully. You must have you just must be talented."
Practice.
That's practice. Uh, man, you have such good range and such good feeling to music. It just must be wonderful to have that gift. It's practice, you know, and there's a little to be said on both sides, but I veer more to the side in what we do for a living, as far as teaching students and ourselves how to do the things to cultivate our talent for whatever gift we've been given.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Because if a kid is really focused on becoming better at something, very rarely do they fail. If
All
they
right.
if they apply themselves, they'll go to a certain level. They might not be all state concert master in the symphony, on violin, but they will be better at what they do. And so we can cultivate this into anybody. So here's what we're going to go into. There's 3 key elements in this thing, in the talent
Okay.
code. Great book. So if you ever get just need something to read out there, it's The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle, Coyle. Daniel Coyle. Number 1 is deep practice.
Let
This
me
is
ask you
not
this, just not has nothing to do before you get too into it. Is it a pretty easy read? Is it
no.
kind of textbook?
It's not a hard read, but it's not an easy read.
Okay.
You're gonna have to. It's like eating a steak. You're gonna have to do it in bites. You're not going to sit down and read the whole thing on a Sunday afternoon. We're
Okay.
like Atomic Habits. That's a pretty easy read, actually. You
Okay.
know what I mean? You can knock that out pretty quick. But our deep practice. It's not a passive rote repetition, but it's an intentional, mistake focused process. So listen closely. That pushes you to the edge of your abilities, pushes you all the way to the edge. And he explains that the struggle is a biological requirement for building skills. It's a it's how we learn how to do things from the time we're born. Um, so it forces you to kind of fire and refine those specific neural circuits involved. And we don't know what circuits they are, but it's the same way a young child learns how to first roll over as a baby, and then they learn how to crawl, then they learn how to mimic facial expressions by watching people. So these things are very not passive rote repetition. These are things they're watching, and they're figuring out, how do I move my body? Have you seen like a small baby when they just kind of look at their hand like it's not even part of their body anymore?
Right. Where did that come
Yeah,
from?
it's like, oh my gosh, well, what is that? And we kind of have to reapproach that same process when we're learning music. It has to be like, where did that come from? It has to be this mistake focused process of doing it. So how do we do that? It's easy for me to say philosophically, let's just do that. That's not going to help anyone. But basically, you've got to get to the edge of the envelope of struggle in order to learn something. That's why when most people practice, this is going to step on toes out there. Most people practice what they already know how to play.
Right.
It's like, they'll play the same thing they played 30 years ago. And then and I think there's a point in your practice session that's a good thing.
Sure.
There should be a portion that I always like to finish my practice with something I really know well. That concert etude on trumpet, it's a class 1 UL, so probably the easiest one on the class 1 list. I just really like it.
Right.
I just have it memorized. I just like it. So I like to end my practice sessions with that, because I put down my horn and I feel good.
Right.
But the first part of my session is like, let's do lip flexibility studies all the way up the range of the horn. And I mean, I'm sweating bullets, man, trying to get through that, because the only things that you ever really learn completely are things you depend on for what you consider survival. That doesn't mean
Right.
you're literally surviving, but for me to survive as a musician, there are things I have to force myself to do. So here's what we do. We chunk it up. We chunk it up. We take a complex skill, and
Okay.
we stay with me, Derrick. We put it in chunks. To manage a complex skill, you first absorb the whole thing. You do the whole thing. You play the exercise, good, bad, and ugly. Okay. Then you break it up into small, manageable, little tiny chunks to perfect. And you can do this with your band as well. So plan your rehearsal to make this happen. You can spend an hour on 16 counts of drill. It's okay. It's better to accomplish one thing well than to attempt six things halfway in a rehearsal, which is what I normally see. And it's what I
Right.
spent half my life doing until I finally figured out from people who just beat me in the head saying, "What are you doing? All you're doing is having them repeat mistakes over and over again." Okay. If you want the brass to learn how to double tongue, you can't just approach it one day and just let them go and just say, "Okay, you've been told how to do it. I've educated you."
Right.
Okay. They've got to somehow in their brain fire those neural circuits. This is what I do with my tongue. This is what I do with my airstream. This is how I double tongue. And then you've got to give them some sort of way to chunk that into little tiny chunks. And the way I always did it was I would tell my brass players to tongue every note in the fight song for all of football season with a K sound. Every
Right.
articulation. It's
Okay.
not a T, it's not a D, it's a ka. Ka, 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 ka. And that way, by the time they get through football season, the K articulation is just as confident and firm as the T and the D articulation. Then you simply go, now just go, taka, 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 ta. And they go, taka, 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 taka. Oh, I can double tongue. They've fired that neural circuit every football game. If you had a good football team, you get to play the fight song a lot. At Wiley, we had a really good football team. So we had the
It's a
short
caveat.
version of the fight song and we had the long version, the real version of the fight song. So they played the fight song a lot. But by the end of the season, they could sound just as good playing it with a K sound as they could with a T sound. Excuse me. Getting all choked up thinking about double tonguing on trumpet. It's just an issue. Okay. And then, like I said with the fight song, you repeat it. Deliberate, focused repetition, but it has to be deliberate and focused. It can't just be do it again. Do it again. It has to be what are we doing? It strengthens that neural circuit. And this is physically in the brain, it does. It builds that myelin, that sheath around those neurons that connect them. It builds it. And we'll talk about that sheath here in a little bit. But only the director needs to know that. You can mention it to a kid if you're like in a private lesson or something. But I wouldn't go through this whole ordeal with the band. Just incorporate the routine, and then you know what's happening inside their brains. Okay.
Right.
So that's one, deep practice, not just practice, but deep practice. I think we all know that to a certain extent because we all heard that expression, perfect practice makes perfect.
Yeah. Practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice make perfect.
Yes. So do you see where that's pretty much the same idea?
Sure.
That perfect practice is deep practice. I'm thinking about everything I'm doing. So this isn't a new thing, but I want people to understand what the physiology is behind it and how we can incorporate it with our band. The second thing,
But I have to tell you real quick that that is the best argument I've ever heard presented against rote teaching.
yes, amen.
You have to contemplate, you have to consider what you're doing as opposed to make it sound like this.
Yes, yes,
Mimic.
yes. And like right now, I'm in this experiment just to keep my brain working. I'm trying to learn Spanish on Babbel.
Are you?
So I bought Babbel. The lifelong membership was $199. They were running a special. I thought, I'm going to do that. So each day I've got like a 40-day streak. Can I speak yet? No.
No, I'm asking. I want to know because listen,
It's been great for me.
geographically, I'm an idiot not to know Spanish.
Yeah. Well, it triggered me in a good way because my son was doing his residency in Temple. Okay. So I was over there and I was at the like the 7-Eleven or whatever. And this young Hispanic guy came in and I can't speak Spanish, so don't hold this against me, but he said something in terms of Cantacuesto, pequeño yalo. And in my mind, he wanted to know how much is a small bag of ice. I don't know Spanish, but I knew enough to
Right.
no one else in that. So there's 30 of us sitting there. And I thought for sure I was way back in the line trying to buy my little coffee. And I just waited. No one said a thing. And this guy's looking at panic. And finally I spoke up and I go, he wants to know how much for a small bag of ice. And he turned to me and started, blah, 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 blah. Oh, no. Oh,
That's
no.
my problem.
No, that's all I got. That's all I got. And he goes, see, yes. So he understood that I didn't know much Spanish. But yeah,
Because
that's what I wanted to do. I want to do it to make my brain better, but like you said, you feel like an idiot because everyone around you can speak Spanish, and I kind of want to be a part of the crowd, man. I want to be part
Right.
of the in crowd.
Or just from the simple standpoint of what I do for a living, I have so many parents that
Oh
are
yeah,
ESL that if I could just speak to them in a way, I would feel. I feel like their quality of interaction or that experience would be so much better if somebody could look at them and go, "All right, I speak your language." Anyway,
yeah.
that's so far off topic, but
No, it's not.
to bring it back, I'm a fantastic mimic. I really am. I can say phrases in Spanish and people assume I speak Spanish just because I mimic,
Yeah,
my roommate was his mother listening to them talk on the phone for 3 years in college. I can I know how to say words. I
yeah.
have no idea what those words mean.
And you would love Babbel. Because see,
Okay.
I tried that Duolingo, and
Yeah.
that was pretty much just memorize words and phrases, and that did nothing for me. But Babbel gets into, I mean, you go through lessons where you conjugate verbs, and So for me, I really find it really a very intentional way of learning how to speak Spanish,
Oh, cool.
and I'm hoping maybe in 2 or 3 years. But what also triggered me is I was doing a clinic, and there was a little tuba player in a middle school band, and he was misbehaving you know you know go figure. And I said something to him, I don't know, so you need to pay attention, do this. In fact, I need to ask you a question, how do we do this in this music? And he wouldn't say anything, and another kid started to answer for him, and I go, no, he can answer me. And the other kid goes, well, if he spoke English he probably could. I go, good point, tell him what I said. So
That's
it'd be
funny.
nice to speak enough Spanish to where you could, like you said, just to at some level be able to communicate with someone who
Right.
that's their native language. And in our part of the world, that's going to be more important as time goes on, because we need to be able to, as an old white boomer, that my first language is English, and I lived in Germany for 7 years, and I can do a little bit of German, but Spanish needs to be something I understand more of. You know, so
Right.
that's my, just be part of your community that way, because a lot more of our kids, English is their second language, and so we've got to meet them where they're at. We can't just
Sure.
say, we can't be like Mike Lunny and go, he can answer for himself. No, he can't. He has no idea what you just said. He just moved here. So going through that, the second thing is we call it ignition. It's really important in music practice and learning. Ignition is the motivational spark that triggers the desire to pursue a skill. For me, it's watching the Blue Devils. No,
Yeah. Yeah,
it
that's me.
fuels, yeah, it fuels that immense energy required for deep practice, because it takes a lot of energy. This ignition often comes from primal cues. Isn't that funny? It's like our brainstem talking to us, like, "Oh, me want to be better trumpet," you know, or seeing it, or better yet, like we just said with like the Blue Devils or the Blue Coats, we see an example of excellence. I see Wynton Marsalis playing the trumpet thing on the Sunday morning show, and I'm like, and I'll never be able to do that, but it makes me want to go practice. It convinces someone, hey, maybe I could at least get the energy to do a deep practice. Um,
Right.
think all state students in the band, think professional musicians. My favorite is listen to Doc Severinsen. To me, Doc Severinsen is one of the best, I guess you might say, pop trumpet players out there, because he's just so clean with such good range and stuff. If I ever want to practice really hard, I'll listen to the Tonight Show recording with some of his specials, Begin the Begin, and I'll
Sure.
just listen to that and like for 5 minutes and shut it off. I'm amped up, man. I'm amped up. I can do my stupid lip slurs, if I do that. So that they've got to have people that I think one of the big things we don't do for kids is give them lists of names of, like, if they're a flute player, tell them who, really, you might have to research it. If it's a trumpet player, there's Maynard with an amazing range but plays dirty as heck. There's Doc Severinsen, who's a great player. Arturo Sandoval, who's a whole different animal. Miles Davis, who wouldn't even look at it. I once saw him play in Dallas once. He came out on stage and never made eye contact with the audience. He's turned his back to us and played his whole concert. Clifford Brown, who's amazing. So they've got to know these people, because these kids, they'll dig them out. They'll get on
Right.
YouTube and they'll find them, man. You know. So with this ignition thing, I mean, I think we all know that, because the first time I ever saw a horn line in DCI was the Phantom Regiment. I was a sophomore in high school, and our band director dropped us off in a bus in Dallas, and I see the Phantom Regiment warming up, and it was like 1978. I think they won or tied for DCI that year, something like that. And I right then, you talk about the ignition happening. I was like, I'm going to do this someday. And 3 years later, I did. And I think it all came from that moment of ignition. Okay.
So, clarity, you're saying as a teacher, it is incumbent upon us to create moments of inspiration or give them something to aspire to
Yeah.
make them want to accomplish or to begin the process of deep practice?
Yeah. Something as simple as, I know it's a pain in the summer, but see if you can take your band to a drum corps show. Or if it's the week that's not your area, and I know we're all so busy, so I even hate saying this, but if it's close, to where you're at, get a bus and tell kids that, hey, yeah, bring $6 for a ticket and some lunch money. We're going to go watch the 6A area marching contest at the stadium, and that might be the ignition for a kid who might one day be a drum major.
Right.
So provide those moments for them. The Marine Band is coming to our little town. The tickets are going to be available like starting in 2 days, and they're going to be here. I forget the exact date. I'd have to look it up, but I'm going to be there, man. It's at one of our local universities, Hardin-Simmons University. The Marine Band's going to be there. What a point of ignition for some young kid to come in. For me, the point of ignition, and this is a bizarre one. When I was in 5th grade, I lived in Germany, and we did a music field trip, and we went to Berlin, and we watched the Berlin Philharmonic play Paul Hindemith's Symphonic Metamorphosis.
Mm.
At that moment, when I got back on that bus with that I've still got the program at home, by the way. Think about that. I'm 62 years old. I still have that program in my book. And from that moment on, I didn't know what I was going to do, but it was going to be something to do with music. Prior to that point, I just played a little piano, and it was not a big deal to me. And it was right at that point, I was ignited, man. This is what I'm going to do. I don't know what it is. I'm going to play or perform. I don't know, but I'm ignited, man. I was just a goofy little 5th grader.
Similar story. 6th grade, Midland, Texas. All the elementary kids went to Midland High School auditorium to see one of the service bands.
Mm-hmm.
They played Bugler's Holiday. I knew immediately
you were going to be a trumpet,
that I was going to play that. And I went, and the reason I know that it had to be an ignition moment is I wasn't even, I mean, this is halfway through the year. I hadn't talked to a band director. I didn't know the band director. I didn't understand band as a concept, but my dad went and got me a beginner cornet halfway through 6th grade because I was so stoked.
Yeah.
And I knew that that's what I was going to do.
Yeah, you were so ignited. You weren't going to play trumpet. You were going to be a trumpet.
I was absolutely.
There's a difference in there. I am a trumpet. No, sir, you're a human being. Maybe, but I'm a trumpet.
I'm an extension.
I'm an extension of it. Yeah.
But
I breathe in this end and it makes music, Isn't it cool? And so here's some kind of primal cues. We talk about the brainstem stuff, breakthrough moments of greatness. Find an initial success story. I would say there's a lot of our kids at the school I taught at that as a arranger composer, their ignition source was Luke McMillan because he wrote our marching shows and he was standing there.
Right.
And it was like, oh my gosh, this came out of his brain. What we're doing, he wrote on a computer and now he's telling us how to do it. And so that's an ignition moment. A lot of those kids now are writing, or it can be a powerful signal to others that greatness is possible. We had a young tuba player at the time. It was Lee Bragg. Now he goes by Lee Brannon. But he was in the Commodore's own drum and bugle corps as a tuba player. And he was an all-stater on tuba. And he produced a chorale of tubas. You know what I mean? All those little tuba players saw Lee and they said, we want to be like Lee.
Yeah.
Lee's our man, For me, it's kind of the second one too. That's the moment of greatness, but belonging and a group identity. I think humans have a deep-seated need to belong. And when we see a high-achieving group and it's formed, we kind of want to be part of it. I think that's a key aspect when you kind of look. Also, in addition to like churches with a spiritual side, there's a certain side of it's just a humanistic thing of we just want to belong to a group of people.
of
And I'm
like
not,
minded. Yeah, I
yeah,
got
and
it.
I'm not denouncing that it's a spiritual thing, and I'm a Christian, but it's not. It's part of it is that human primal nature. We want to be part of a group. I think that comes from a long time ago as our ancestors. That was survival.
Yeah, we're
We had,
tribal. Yeah,
yeah, we had to survive being part of a group. For example, young siblings are often highly motivated to be as fast as their older siblings. I got three grandsons. It's funny to watch the two oldest as the middle one tries to be as fast or do things better, and sometimes he does them better, and the older one gets mad. It's so band is that works. They want to be part of the group, and I think my poor third grandson, little Mac, I think he's just going to be raised by the pack. You know, the other two will teach him all the things that need to be taught to that young man.
that's fun.
Yeah, he's only a few months old now. But for band, that was a big reason for me. Being
Sure.
a member of the ensemble was important to me because I wasn't a part of any other group. I wasn't really good with tools. I wasn't really good with. I could play baseball and football, but you go back to your gifted thing. I was not talented in the athletic realm. I enjoyed it, but I didn't feel like I was good at it for some reason. Like you said earlier, I give a lot of validation to what you're saying because I did when I started playing piano. I was like, hey, I can do this pretty good.
Right.
This makes sense to me.
Right.
So is that talent? Is it whatever it is? It ignited in me. Okay. A third thing, inspirational imagery. Physical cues in the environment, even seemingly mundane ones, can have a powerful impact. And Coyle, he talks in here, he starts a story about a little league field. And this is important for our band halls. It was in Curacao, little island in the Bahamas, that he saw this little league field where they had pictures of like 15 major league baseball players that had come through that stadium. Think about that for a second. A
Sure.
little tiny Bahamian island with one little league field, and they had big pictures of them. So those kids saw those pictures every workout. That's so and so who plays for the A's. That's so and so who plays for the Rockies. That's so and so. Don't you know that's inspirational? Use that to your advantage. I didn't do that very well. We had pictures of our bands that did well, but I know band halls that have like their kind of like Hall of Honor. Every kid who makes All State gets their picture as a senior put up on this wall. And the kids look at it and go, hey, they did that. And they
Right.
grew up in Crane or Capel or Hebron. They grew up there.
Right.
It gives them some talent, or it's not talent, it gives them some motivation. And, that wasn't a thing when I was in high school. Our motivation was just don't make the band director mad. There was I had no earthly idea how many sweepstakes that band had won. There was no pictures anywhere on the wall of any. There's no banners saying how many times they'd made first divisions. I just knew that I didn't want to make the band director mad, you know.
Right.
And where the kids are smarter nowadays, I think it's really cool to have banners saying this is the years that we've made first divisions. I'm not saying you guys are not competitive or don't want to be competitive bands or you think competition's wrong. It doesn't have to be that. Just whoever's the best musicians, you know
Right.
what I mean? Just use it to your advantage. Hang
But
banners, display trophies.
but you're creating a validation. You're creating a proof that the process is achievable. These are people you know
Yeah,
that achieved that.
yeah.
They came from the same place you're coming from. You can do this.
And one my college band directors will love is the one thing I did do is I would have a little bulletin board with pictures of students playing in college bands that came from our program at Baylor and Texas Tech and UT and Hardin
Mm,
Simmons and McMurray, and just put the school, the picture, and the year they graduated. To Because those kids kind of think a lot of times, I don't have time for band in college, and band doesn't take near as much time in college and
right.
university as it takes, and it's. I hate to say this to my because I taught high school band forever. It's a lot more fun. It's a lot less work and a lot more fun in college, so the kids do have time to do it. Our students who go march DCI, if they marched in the Phantom Regiment or the Blue Coats or whatever, or the Cavies, have a picture of them somewhere. It's motivational to them. Okay.
Right. And it
And
gives them a bigger picture than what they might see where they are every day.
yeah, yeah, that there's life after doing this. I don't have to quit playing just because I graduate.
Right.
And that is a big problem. And the next thing is a craftsman mindset. And I really like this one a lot. In contrast to the modern emphasis on we are artistic geniuses, We are aesthetic. We are talented. We are artistic geniuses. This is a talent that's the same thing as when you see a really good diesel mechanic. They're a highly intelligent craftsman, or you see a good instrument repairman. They are a craftsman.
I agree.
They're talented, but but it's a craftsman mindset. I do this because I'm part of this cult of craftsmen that do this particular skill, and I'm just really good at it. And I think we have to incorporate that in our practice, that I'm not just a trumpet player that has done some things and performs in some groups and has had some good bands and I've had some bad bands. I'm a craftsman. I
Right.
do things a certain way, just like a carpenter. This is how you fix a door. This is how you build a bookshelf. There's no two ways to do it. There's the craftsman way. This is
Right.
how we do it. So
You
we
care if
take
I
great
speak to
pride.
that for a second?
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
Because, part of my journey in life is a trumpet player walked into a woodwind repair shop as a newly hired woodwind. I couldn't play clarinet. I couldn't play saxophone.
Yeah.
I can't play flute. I couldn't play those instruments, and I'm going to be tasked with repairing them. And so I was blessed to have I was the apprentice, and the master was kind enough to let me learn the hard way.
Mhm.
In that, first thing he did was hand me something. See that clarinet? Take it apart. Okay, I can do that. I can destroy things easily. Now
Yeah.
put it back together, and taught me that if I don't pay attention to what I'm doing, I won't know how to put it back together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then once I got to this, starting to level pads out and stuff, I'd play through it. I could honk out whatever I need. I'd hand it to him. He goes, "Oh, that's not even close." Well, what's
Yeah.
wrong? You're gonna have to figure out what's wrong. I can't. I might as well fix it myself.
Yeah.
If I have to explain every little, I'll give you the general concept. But what he was creating was this mindset that I had. It was incumbent on me to do the best I could do because I had to give that back to a kid. It was my responsibility that student that was getting that instrument back had every opportunity to be successful, not because some shoddy work was done and they still couldn't get across the break.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know if that makes sense what I'm telling you, but the craftsman aspect of the challenge for me, the inspiration for me, the ignition was I'm responsible for this instrument being in its best possible shape. And I think that's what you're talking about by saying craftsman,
Mhm.
so that the person using it doesn't have to go, gosh, it just doesn't feel right. Or I
Yeah.
wish I had the best equipment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And as craftsmen in our situation, it's like we want to be consumed with the little details. And I've said this quote a lot, but it's to be consumed with the details that would annoy a lesser musician. And that's like a craftsman. And you're right. If you have to tell someone exactly what to do as a craftsman, then they never really remember it.
And they
They're
don't become one.
They don't become a craftsman. They've got to figure out how to make that happen. And I think as a band director, as a music teacher, and as an individual musician honing your craft of playing your instrument, there's some of that that's involved too. You got to figure out, what am I doing wrong? I could get a really good trumpet player to show me how to do that better, and that would help. But I think I kind of need to figure this out.
But
You
the
know?
truth is, Mike, somebody could show me something, but my lips are different than their lips. The way my mouth is shaped is different. I need an example, but I got to figure out how to do that. I have to work, put in the time, put in the effort,
Hmm.
and be able to say, not yet. What is that saying? Good is the enemy of great.
Yeah.
Good enough is not good enough. Man, you just see, you ignited me for a second. I'll get back
Yeah.
out of the way.
Yeah.
But
We're just talking
craftsman,
about myelin and the fact that we got to work hard, and you're getting all aesthetic on me. But you're exactly right. And what happened was you were ignited, because what happens, we have this stingy banker in our head, and the stingy banker keeps all our energy reserves.
right?
And we have to ignite that to get it back out. And so these motivational cues we're talking about, whether it's seeing it a great person, taking a craftsman mindset to it, those are the primal cues that allow us to unleash the energy needed to become better at what we do. Otherwise, we just become average.
Yeah,
And
good.
it's not
That's
bad being
good.
average, but we're average. And I think if anyone who wants to put that much time into something, they want to be better than average.
And I'm afraid we live in a world where average, to stand out, you just have to be mediocre.
Yeah, yeah.
And I hate to say that's the old man screaming at the clouds. I get it. There's still craftsmen out there, but
But yeah, but those primal cues, cue them up, man. Give them examples. If nothing else, like when I taught like beginner brass, and I'm not an incredible player by any means, but I can play better than my beginners. So I could just play something like a movement from a variation from the Carnival of Venice on my trumpet, and you could just see them. I mean, they get energetic and start breathing faster and
Right.
start moving around in their chairs, and it ignites them because they're like, and then I'll tell them, said, you know what? I sat the same way you did years and years ago. And
Right.
my band director was a trumpet player, and he would play his horn. And I thought the same thing. I want to do that. And
Yep.
so you got to unleash that energy. And now the hard part comes now is the third part of these three: master coaching. Master your teaching skills just like you did your instrument. And that's where, I know this is kind of a really broad brush, but some of the, hope no one takes offense to this generalization. Some of the best band directors out there are not the most incredible performers on their instrument.
100% agree.
And some of the most incredible performers on their instrument
Are really bad
sometimes
teachers.
are really bad teachers. So there's really not any correlation between the two, except for the fact that they were really good on their instrument, but then they never transferred all that energy to learning how to teach all the instruments. Or
Right.
worse yet, like you said earlier with the whole talent idea, it came easy to them. So it's hard for them to describe to a student how to make that happen on their horn because they're just sitting there, just do it.
Right.
What do you mean?
You
Just
know,
play higher notes. Just
we talk
practice.
about institutional knowledge. I don't know how to explain what I'm doing because I just do it.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
think I'm a master at teaching articulation because I got through my whole beginner band year without ever articulating. I just go, huh, huh. I just breathe air. Then seventh grade, we had this little march and we're like, da, 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 dee, ba-dum. There's a little King March. I forget even what it's called. I just remember that phrase. I can still play it. But we went down the line, and Mr. Miller was my junior high band director. Later on, my high school band director, he goes, "You're not tonguing." I go, "I know."
tell me something I don't
Yeah.
know.
See me after school. So I spent that whole year learning hard to learn too how to articulate because I'd never articulated, and I can still articulate. Not That's not really articulation. I can still make notes start pretty well just with my air because
Yeah.
I practiced a whole year doing it. But you can hear the difference. But yeah,
Sure.
so you've got to be a master teacher. You got to apply all that stuff you did learning how to play your instrument to how do we actually teach. They great coaches and teachers, they act as, and you'll love this one, talent whisperers. They're talent whisperers. They guide and fuel deep practice. We can't practice for them. We can guide it and we can fuel it. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire. They
Right.
create an environment that facilitates learning where the kid's not afraid of being wrong. If you just rail on a kid for being wrong all the time, they'll just shut you out. It's okay to make a mistake. They provide highly specific and immediate feedback. Master coaches possess a deep understanding of their craft. The kids have to know that and feel that, and the ability to customize their approach to that band or that kid. That's the hardest thing for me to do as a clinician because I could work my band relentlessly, but it takes a while to figure out, why is this band doing this way? And then how do I customize my approach to be the most effective in the time given to me? And that's a really craftsman kind of approach to it. I'm not trying to, that sounded real narcissistic to say it that way, but that's the craftsman side of me. This is not an aesthetic music talent thing. This is, what do I do logically to make them do what I want them to do when I see them do it this way? Does that make sense?
It does. And there's so many things that you trigger in that. One of those is giving them permission to fail as part of the process of learning how to succeed.
Yeah.
You have to do it wrong to go, see, that doesn't feel right. Now let's move your tongue over here, or let's adjust where you're actually touching the back of your teeth. You know what I mean?
Mhm. You're right.
And so they have to do it wrong before you can say, here's how to do it right. And I think that so many people we live in this, and I'm this person, I shouldn't say we live in this world. I live in this world of, I don't want people to watch me rehearse. I don't want people to watch me fail. I don't want people to hear my worst. And so sometimes it's hard to teach me how to be my best because I won't give you my worst. Man, that sounded weird, didn't it?
It made sense though.
But at the same time, as a teacher, I think you also, as a clinician, I think sometimes it would. This is what I would have to be careful of. Teach something that you know as a craftsman without undermining the validity of the person that stands in front of them every day.
Yes. Yeah. You never want to throw the director in the scaffolding
Why
with
are you
you on your
doing
class.
that? That is
Yeah.
idiotic.
Or at least turn off your transmitter before you say something. They'll tell you about that. They know when they hear click, it's like,
But
Why
you've told me before that somebody's walked up behind you while you're in front of your band and going, what are you
yeah. Well, I've been told in front of the band, said, y'all made a one?
That's what I'm telling you.
Well, I don't know. It was an accident. I don't
I'm
know
not
what
sure
happened.
that's a craftsman approach.
Yeah, that's an old school boomer approach. Okay. But yeah, it is different. And sometimes with whether it's an individual student or a band, especially with a band, I think you have to show them how to do something wrong in order to hear it right.
That's
Like,
kind of my point. Yeah.
let's play this out of balance. And now at the end of this, when we cut off, trumpets and flutes and clarinets just hang on for a millisecond. Tubas and baritones cut out like just a millisecond early. And then they'll do it and say, now you've heard that sound before, haven't you? And I said, well, yeah. I said, well, sure you have. That's 90% of all bands at contest. Now, upper voices cut off a millisecond early. Tubas and baritones cut off just a millisecond, just almost imperceptible, just a little late. Then they'll do it and you'll hear it resonate. Even in the stands, it'll resonate.
Mm.
Instead of now do it the wrong way. Now all you have to say wrong way, wrong way, right way. Or when they articulate, a really bad habit, when they tongue, they'll move their tongue back in their mouth when they articulate.
Right.
So the tongue going down. And to tell them to do it wrong, and then let them listen to it, and then tell them to do it right, and then they hear the difference. And that's motivational. That's a primal cue. Back into our Daniel Coyle stuff. It's a primal cue to, well, it does sound better if I do it this way. So I'm going to work hard and unleash that energy to practice it correctly instead of just, I heard the director say something, but I wonder if we're having tacos for lunch. You know what I mean? They just
know.
they just don't hear it. They just don't hear it. You got to make them do it. So when we get to this master coaching, we customize it. And now here's the science behind it. Only you need to know this unless it's a kid that's really interested. It's pronounced myelin, Mylen, myelin. It's a scientific concept. It's a material. Myelin is the scientific concept that Daniel Coyle built all this around. And it's not something he just made up. This is a neuroscience kind of thing. Myelin is a microscopic cellular insulation that wraps around nerve fibers carrying electrical signals in the brain. It's what connects neurons. Okay. When a neural circuit is fired correctly through deep practice, the myelin sheath thickens. They've proven that in studies. The myelin sheath gets thicker and thicker. The thicker it is, it's like a better cable. It connects better. The more you do it, that's why we get muscle memory. Muscle memory is real thick myelin sheaths in your brain, knowing that if I move my fingers this way, the song comes out.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even know the notes anymore. You just know your fingers move a certain way. The thicker the myelin, the faster and more accurate the signal travels, which translates into faster and more precise thoughts and movements. Here's the scary part. Myelin isn't fixed at birth, but it can be grown throughout life. Explaining why, and this is why I started working on Babel, by the way, because I'm trying to make sure I'm trying to keep my brain as sharp as I can as an old man. But it explains why anyone can develop a certain level of talent. Notice that qualifier, a certain level of talent with the right practice. Okay. And this is mind blowing. The old perfect practice makes perfect, seen through the lens of science. That's the science behind it. There's these little, if you want to think about it, there's these sheath around the neurons. The thicker they are, the more the neurons conduct electricity. You can make that happen through practice. And if you don't practice, the sheath gets thinner. And then all of a sudden it's not there anymore. Okay. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I don't know. I wouldn't go through that with my whole band because they would just totally zone out on me. In fact, Derrick was getting a little glazed over there for a little bit.
But you know what? Recent story relative to what we're talking about. There was it went kind of viral. I told you I'm off social media at the moment, but before I left, the 60-something-year-old guy that marched through his neighborhood with his sousaphone because he wanted to remember how to march and how to play, and now he's playing in his college band again. Did you see that story?
Yeah.
Same kind of concept. And I'm going to throw this at you just as a point of conversation, and it's not a challenge to you, but I've been taught or I've heard most of my life, that young children learn languages, become bilingual, trilingual much easier than older children or adults.
Oh yeah. The lady that watched me in Germany, are not a nanny, but this why when my mom couldn't be around, she barely spoke English. So I spoke quite a bit of German just because I was, a little kid. But you're right.
But what
Those
I've
neurons
heard,
those neurons fire quicker.
well, what I've heard is that they don't have the concept of they can't.
Yeah.
They don't battle the doubt in the ability to learn something the way, as we fail, as we grow, we begin to doubt that we can do things more
Yeah, and
than
it's not
when we
just
were
doubt,
younger.
it's more the embarrassment.
Sure, but you
We get a
follow
sense
the
of
concept
embarrassment.
there that
Toddlers
we
never get embarrassed.
that's why the ignition and the inspiration is so important to get us past the I don't think I can, because that's what I see in beginner classes. I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't think I can do what you just asked me to do. I don't want to play in front of everybody else.
Yeah.
The concept we had when, and you've spoke against it, but we used to just go down the road, do it, do it, do it, do it.
Mhm.
I'm not sure we're reinforcing positivity in some of the lower end of the section when we do that, but my point remains the same, that we have to be inspired enough to get past or create successes for our kids to get over that doubt, to get over that fear of embarrassment, to get over the fear of failure. It's okay to fail. It's
Mhm.
part of the process. And here's where you're headed. You're going to get there if you'll just, it's that master coach, the craftsmanship aspect of it. You can do this. Scientifically, I know you can.
Yeah.
You just have to put the effort in.
And the really kind of almost scary part, because we kind of depend on this other side of it, the scary part is it's not really dependent as much on income, family life. I mean, there's aspects that change how
Sure.
people operate, but I'll give you a good example. I have a list of them, but I'm not going to go through all of them. But Opus 118 is a school of music in Harlem. It's kind of like the old show Fame.
Hmm.
It's a music magnet, and they use this whole idea of effective coaching and this Daniel Coyle kind of thing with the myelin sheaths or whatever, and they use CAT scans, the MRIs actually, to figure out what were the changes in these young children's brains, and some came from fairly affluent homes that magnet school came over from, like, upper side of Manhattan. Others were probably fighting a lot of life skill issues with income and environment. And they found out that as long as if they were in school for a certain amount of time and they did the same practice with each grouping, then those kids became just as good on their instrument. And in the scans, the brain neurons fired up in exactly the same places. That's mind blowing to me. No pun
Yep.
intended.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
mind blowing. And then they took kids from like a regular public school that didn't have the magnet school experience, which basically rote teaching in another school. And they had kids that were highly affluent and parents were stockbrokers and whatever. And then they would do the same scan and there was nothing firing.
Yep.
They could rote play a certain piece, but there was not a musical in-depth knowledge of what was happening. And I know in our programs we don't have time for MRIs and all that stuff, but we can certainly work on master coaching. We can work on deep practice and we can work on ignition. And I think we ignore those a lot. I know I did.
Yeah.
It was just like, we got to learn this music today. Go.
So
Monkey see, monkey do it.
I want to ask you something, because I say I believe this. I think I believe this. I think sometimes the student we focus too much on the students that, and I know we're going to argue about whether it's natural talent or ability or whatever, but some kids take to it faster. I'm just going to
Okay.
say that, and we focus on saying, oh man, they're so good, they're so good, they're so good, and we never really challenge them because we're. I'm trying not to walk too big a circle. Have you heard the concept of high floor, low ceiling,
Yeah.
or high ceiling? In athletics, you hear about it a lot. That kid right now may not be the best, but the physical attributes and the work ethic is there, that it's probably a high ceiling. They're looking at being great, as
Mhm.
opposed to they got a high floor, but they're probably not gonna ever going to get much better.
Yeah.
They've tapped out their physical abilities and or whatever. And I'd wonder sometimes if we subconsciously do that with our kids when we're teaching, and we don't realize that somebody may have a low floor but a really high ceiling.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
What we see right now, we have to ignite them, inspire them, challenge them. I didn't hear that necessarily, but as part of master coaching or master teaching, to realize potential, to say that they're not limited by where they are now. And
Yes.
that's where I'm coming into agreement with you,
Yeah,
that
and
they can become great.
I think on the other side of that, and this is going to step on some toes, and I don't care um, for some of those directors out there, but I hear directors all the time. Music is so amazing. Music is for everybody. Music should be so important in our school. And they spend their whole life only catering to the kids who can do it quickly and
Right.
kicking the others out of band. And then
Exactly.
they go, how come we don't have football players marching our band? Well, maybe it's because you don't allow them to have a spot on the drill because they're at football practice and you punish them and you don't
Right.
see it as punishment. I'm going to get onto this. I'm stepping on toes and I'm going to crunch them. But they sit there and go, our football coaches. No, it's probably not always the football coach. It's the tunnel egocentric band director that says if you're not at summer band, you don't get a spot on the field. March
Right.
a hole and put that kid in, but they'll get their trumpets and they'll do everything in the world to get rid of that kid that's not naturally talented.
Right.
And
And
then they get on social media and they talk about how music is so important. I wish our school, if music was that important, then you would teach every kid.
right. Meet them where they are.
You wouldn't get rid of them. They're
Right.
actively getting, and I would have that conversation with my staff. Said, this kid needs to be out of band. I said, well, which one of you are quitting as a
Right.
staff member? Because if we get rid of every kid that's not a strong player, we do not need as many band directors as we have here. We only need me.
Right.
I could teach this whole program if we whittle it down to 50 kids in the high school marching band. I'm the only one that's needed. Said, so which one of you are quitting?
And
You
you
know,
have just projected that kid's entire musical experience into a photographic snapshot of where they are right now.
that's exactly right. They see themselves as a loser. They see
And
themselves as that.
I'm the transparency. I'm the example of the kid that it kind of came easy for me. I never had to work that hard, and as a result, I never worked that hard.
Yeah.
And when I got around people that did work that hard, I was suddenly I couldn't keep up, and I
Yeah.
didn't know how.
And I tell you what, I know this sounds like a whoa, look at me kind of moment. I don't think in my career I ever kicked a kid out of band because they couldn't play their horn.
Right.
The only kids I ever removed from the program is when it was a discipline issue of a highest enough level that it affected other kids in the program. That was the only reason. But I know directors that, oh, they just don't play well. I need to get
Right.
rid of them. So they will literally focus on that child to make sure that child has a miserable experience.
Lizard band.
And then they get all high and mighty talking about how wonderful music is and how it makes the brain great. And it's so hypocritical,
Right.
it just blows my mind. So hopefully I've crunched a few toes. We need a few casts on some feet out there, but think about what you're doing out there. But make sure that whatever talent's there, find where they're at and then bring them up to whatever level they can get to. And if they can only get to a certain level, that's okay. I mean, I've had kids that were not very good players that took care of my load crew stuff and marched well and played okay, but they made sure the trailer was loaded and perfect every game. And those are probably some of the most loyal people in the world, more so than an all-state musician.
And I'll finish that thought with they took care of the things that the band director didn't do very well.
Yeah. They took care of the details that would
It
annoy a lesser person.
it's somewhat symbiotic, is it not?
Yeah, yeah.
But I guess my point is, and you said it very well, but I have to say it out loud one more time. Quit quit ascribing where they are now as the best they'll ever be. Do your job, ignite something in them. And as you said, they may not ever become an all-state player, but they will be a viable, important, and
Mhm.
necessary member of your ensemble. And they'll love you for it.
And I challenge the directors to, if you don't have time to read the book, I know we do a lot of driving, get the audio book and absorb the material. It'll make you a different teacher. I
Yeah.
promise you that. It'll make you a more of a craftsman teacher, a teacher that ignites things, and a teacher that understands what deep practice is rather than do it again. If you stop a band and say, do that again, and you give them no input, you are wasting your time and their time.
Right.
Do not stop a band to not tell them what to do, you know?
Yeah. Well, man, I got to tell you, from where we started today, I didn't know this is where we'd finish, but I've enjoyed this conversation, friend.
Yeah, it's been a fun one. It's been a fun one.
Cool. Let's have another fun one soon.
Let's do it. See you later, Derrick.
See ya.